I recently found a mod in this war of mine that allowed me to have all 12 characters in the game in a single playthrough. It's called Ultimate Challenge, and all you need to do is subscribe to it on the workshop and turn on the mod in the options of the game. Once it's set up, you simply click on the new scenario and try to survive. Just seeing this house this full is insane, and just look at the reams of photos at the bottom of the screen. The first few days are very intense, with characters running around like maniacs trying to clear everything in the house. The amount of people does make this easy, but there are still only a certain amount of tools to go around, so we do end up with people shoveling with their bare hands. Speaking of tools, we do have Marin, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Having all 12 survivors may make feeding them very, very tricky, but we do get the benefits from each character's ability. Marin saves us loads of resources by building our tools and workshops at a reduced cost. All very useful things. The days are relatively productive at this early stage. The nights, on the other hand, are very similar to normal, except that we have 5 guards. I end up creating a rota with a night watch and a day production team. The night team is Arica, Roman, Boris, Pavle, Marco and Katja, as the trader is glitched in this mod unfortunately and so won't turn up during the day. And the day team is Anton, Sveta, Bruno, Marin, Zlata and Amelia. Everyone will have their tasks and their roles going forward, but some may not be obvious straight away. Our first scavenger is Boris though, as the closer areas are safe and have lots of stuff just to pick up, so he heads off to the shelled cottages nights 1 and 2. The second day is also an interesting one, as we start to realise that characters sleeping poorly isn't great, and we're going to need a lot of beds. And also we're about to be cooking a lot of food, so we will need an upgraded oven. It's going to be an interesting playthrough, but that's the challenge of it. After Boris's second excursion, day 3 is quite a big day. It is our first day feeding all 12. Bruno starts cooking very early, while the other 11 form an orderly queue. It is a bit like herding goldfish with this many people, but thankfully Bruno started early, so he's finished cooking by 11:30, meaning the conveyor belt of hungry survivors can be pushed through in time. Needing more materials for the countless beds for people, Boris heads to the garage to trade meds for tools and materials. He comes back with an axe, and day 4 gives us the opportunity to make 6 beds and our first trap using the axe to chop up all the furniture. We'll get into who will be in charge of the traps and how we plan on feeding this gaggle of survivors next time though, as we'll leave it here for today. What do you think? Do you think I'll make it to the end with no issue? There is a glitch in the mod which means no raids, but also no trader or other events to gain food at the door. The later parts of this challenge I'm thinking may be very, very tough. In the first 4 days of this war of mine with 12 survivors, we cleared the house, got a lot from the shelled cottage and made 6 beds, 1 trap, the metal workshop and an upgraded oven. Let's see what we can do now. Marin builds a second trap and we get Anton, who may actually be a saviour in this run, to fill them up. His bonus will mean we catch food quicker, which is always good. Besides that, the night shift gets some rest ready for a new scavenger to head out this evening. It's Arica's turn and we want to go to the military outpost, as they have lots and lots of food there. Despite a few false starts, Arica's ability really comes in useful a multitude of times. She's able to sneak around with no suspicions, and so gets to the military stores really quickly and really easily. A nice little boost to the dozen supplies, and just in time too. Day 5 is another food day, and we start to see how quickly our food supplies will diminish. I've decided to feed them every other day instead of doing the very hungry strat, simply because if they all get ill, I definitely can't get medicine for them every single day. The cooking is easier this time, with 7 cans on offer from the military outpost, but it's still a zoo as we try to get all the people through. Anton also gets his first catch and sets it off again. His ability is definitely coming in useful. So far, we've actually used 5 abilities of the 12 for the good of the group. Arica's stealth, Anton's maths, Bruno's cooking, Boris's carrying capacity and Marin's building. You can also argue that if raids weren't glitched, then we were also using Roman's fighting proficiency to guard the house at night. Anyway, back to it. Boris heads back to the garage night 5 for more resources, and we do have some low level illness creeping in, but we've got the meds to fix that up. The added resources means that Marin can build us our first garden too, although it will be a while before we can actually grow vegetables there. Knowing we'll need food sooner or later, Boris heads out once more to a close, safe location for more food and stuff. We're only on day 6 and things are already getting a bit intense. I'm hoping things settle down eventually with a stable supply of food and water, but that may not be possible with 12 people. Let me know what you think will happen going forward and whether or not you think I'll make it to the end with all of them. So we're back to see if you can get 12 characters through this war of mine thanks to the Ultimate Challenge mod from the Steam Workshop. Last time we got our trap set up and built the base garden, got used to how we should feed everyone and raided the military outpost for everything we could possibly need. Unfortunately, food is low on day 7, but we have just enough to feed everyone. At the end of the day we have one singular morsel left. We need to work out a way to get more food. Boris heads out to see what he can get at the hotel, but doesn't actually get any food. He does manage to pick up a lot of useful materials though, so it isn't a total loss. On day 8, we fully upgrade our workbench and let the night shift sleep before we send Boris back out, this time to the ghost house. He's able to find some morsels and veg, but nowhere near enough for 12 people. This means that on day 9 we have 8 meals available. Looks like some people are about to go hungry. Arika, Zlata, Marco and Pavle don't make the cut, leaving them hungry. Hopefully we'll be able to feed them soon. One big boost going forward though is the new vegetable garden, which we can use to get a renewable source of veg. Boris hates seeing his friends and housemates hungry, so he decides to take matters into his own hands. He charges into the warehouse looking for food. The 3 men there put up resistance, but after he hears what they've been doing to good people, Boris sees red and dispatches them very quickly. He gathers whatever he can, including 6 cans, 2 morsels and 3 veg. I think everyone will be fed going forward. I do hope that you are enjoying these snappier update vids throughout this playthrough, trying a different style to see what you were used to and whether you like it or not. Let me know what you think below and see you next time. We're up to day 10 into our playthrough of this war of mine with all 12 characters thanks to the Ultimate Challenge mod. Last time we started to see the struggles of having too many mouths to feed, and a few survivors went to bed hungry. Thankfully Boris ransacked the warehouse and brought back a lot of food. We're going to wait until day 11 though to feed those people because we want to keep the timings lined up. Besides that, day 10 goes smoothly and we get more traps set off and a new crowbar. We also start to think about more sustainable scavenging and realise that there are a few traders on the map who will replenish their supplies. The biggest one of these is Matey at the garage. He has good trading numbers for meds and bandages, and currently we're doing pretty well on that front. Boris heads there on night 10 to pick up some extra food for the mass feeding on day 11. The mass feeding goes well, and we even use all the materials that Boris brought back from the garage to set up a multitude of water collectors, as I don't want to be left high and dry in the future. Get it? Dry? Anyway, dad jokes aside, we get a decent setup with reproducible water and food going into the teen days. That night, Boris returns to the warehouse with the tools to break into the rest of the building and picks up a great deal of useful items, including food, meds, a broken guitar, and materials. This setup is going really well currently, and hopefully in a few episodes' time we'll be utilising everyone to make sure that we are creating everything that 12 people might need. Day 12 is spent collecting water and more morsels of food, and learning that cooked food on the stoves lasts indefinitely, before we send Marco out for his first scavenging trip. He goes to the sniper junction and helps the man get back to his kid. This provides us with a morale boost, but also a lot of tradable jewellery and food and meds. Overall, the first 12 days have gone well, and I think we have a pretty solid chance of making it through this war with everybody still alive. Let me know what you think, and if you have any useful tips for me. Welcome back to the 5th episode of our Full House playthrough. It's day 13, and while that may be unlucky for some, today's episode is the one where we fully set up our strategy for the rest of the run. Day 13 is a mass feeding day, so that takes most of our time, but we do use our water collectors from last time to get more water in the bank for the coming days. We then send Boris out to the garage that evening in order for him to trade away some of the meds for food and wood. Our overall strategy will involve trading here a lot, so it's good to know that he has some good materials. The next day, we start on the construction needed for our plan. We get a herbal workshop and an alcohol distillery set up and continue with the water production. Unfortunately, we still need more materials to make everything else that we need. So, the next night, Boris goes to the ruined block of flats to pick up all of those other materials that we will be needing for our strategy. The final part of the strategy is a moonshine still, which we do set up on day 15. Now let's go over the full plan. Number 1. Sell meds for food, water, sugar and herbs. Use that water and sugar, along with any extra water collected at the base, to make moonshine. Refine that moonshine into pure alcohol. Use the pure alcohol and some herbs that we got from the trading, along with some components to make bandages. Repeat this as required. This strategy, along with my vegetable garden and the meat traps, should be enough to get us through the war with plenty of food for all 12 mouths. We start our strategy in full that night, with Catcher trading at the garage for the required materials for the next stage of the plan. Hopefully in the next episode you'll see how this perfectly works and nothing goes wrong. Until then though, thank you for watching and I'll see you guys next time. Welcome back to the full house playthrough of This War of Mine. Last time we set up the full strategy for getting through the entire war with all 12 characters still alive. Today it fully gets into action. Remember, the strategy is to set up a renewable source of food by trading bandages for food and the materials to make more bandages, which we will then supplement with extra scavenging and water collecting in order to get enough to make more bandages. So, Catcher returns from trading with a lot of the materials that we need, and Bruno starts making alcohol. Meanwhile, the rest of the team man the water collectors and we build up a stockpile of water. We're also going to need components to make the bandages, so Boris goes to the construction site to collect some materials from the safer lower floors. He doesn't get involved with those 2 snipers though. We don't want to lose a character this late in the game. The next day has Bruno busy cooking for everybody, so Erica finishes off the moonshine and sets off the purification process. We keep making water as it will always be needed, and then Marin makes our first set of bandages using this process. With the new bandages in hand, Catcher returns to the garage and trades those away for more food and more materials. The next few days go by similarly, with alcohol and water being produced, and then Boris getting materials and fuel when he goes out in nights in between. We also get more veg on the go on day 19, before we make another bandage and Catcher has another trading expedition. The process is working and our lovely dozen may make it to the end of this war after everything. Tune in next time as we enter the late game stage. Last time we fully implemented the strategy and got things up and running. Now we enter the late game with all 12 characters still surviving, and let's see how it goes. This episode starts off how we left off, with more alcohol being produced and bandages being made as well. We now decide to try some new traders though, to see if we can get any new items or materials. The garage may not replenish quickly enough, so we do need to diversify who we trade with. The first of these new traders is the Shelled School, where Boris goes and trades with the rebels. We do get some stuff here, like filters and some alcohol, but there really isn't enough that we want to fill Boris's inventory, so he quickly runs around and grabs materials from the floor that are available, including the roof. The next day is again a feeding day, but that doesn't stop this strategy and this meta from progressing. We get more bandages and loads more alcohol, and then we head straight back to the garage to get more sensible materials. Boris does well, and we get more filters for more water and more materials in general. Day 22 gives us more water, veg and alcohol. The strategy really works well, and so we head towards the final part of this game. Nothing really to worry about, as Boris finds another trader at the semi-detached house and tries to trade with them. Unfortunately, this trade is even more disappointing, and so Boris has to spend a long night getting together all the resources that he can muster from this semi-detached house. And that brings episode 7 to a close. I think I'm going to put the rest of the run in just one more episode, so be sure to tune in for that next week as we see if all 12 characters will make it. Welcome all to the final episode of this series. All 12 characters have made it this far, but will they make it to the end of this episode alive? Day 23 is yet another feeding day. I feel we've got through more food in this playthrough than I've ever done before in any game of This War of Mine. Thankfully, we still have enough for everyone, but not by much. We really can't afford to let up the strategy for even a single day. One other idea that we do have to try and get the war to end faster is to go to the port and escape by boat. We could maybe get enough jewellery to get passage, and it would mean we don't have to worry about getting too much more food. So we go there with Boris and have the sensible conversation about getting out. Boris even manages to grab some useful items from the port, though it isn't a wasted trip. The next day is spent waiting and collecting water. Marin gets to upgrade his metal workshop finally as well. Unfortunately, it does seem like the glitch in this playthrough of no one coming to the house applies to the port man too. I think we'll have to get to the end of the run through regardless. That night, we send Boris to the looted gas station, as we have enough food and could do with some more resources and jewellery, just in case the portman does turn up. We get what we can and head home. It's now day 25, and it's another feeding day. This takes long enough that the portman would have come by now if he was coming. Dejected, we head to bed, only to hear the announcement that we were all waiting for come over the radio. War is over. So thank you very much for watching this series. It seems you can get through the entire war with all 12 characters in one house. Let me know what you thought of this and let me know what you want me to do next. If you have enjoyed, please do subscribe and I will see you in the next series. Ta-ra.